The sky above Earth was no longer blue. It had taken on a dull, silver-gray hue, painted by the flicker of distant patrol ships and the ever-present hum of the Galactic Empire's blockade. For 50 years, the planet had lived under a cage. Nothing came in, nothing left. Trade, travel, and communication with the stars had all been cut off. Earth, once a proud world at the center of a powerful alliance, was now a forgotten rock under siege. Commander Jackson Morrow stood on the roof of a collapsed building in what used to be New Toronto. He wore a worn brown jacket over his armored vest, the same gear he had used since the last battle of the Terran Rebellion. His eyes, sharp and tired, scanned the sky. He wasn't looking for beauty. He was watching for patrol drones. They always came at dusk. Below him, in the shadows of broken towers, his team moved silently. They were unloading crates from a hidden tunnel. Food, water, and medical supplies. Just enough to keep a small colony alive another week. Every run was a risk, but that's what the resistance did. They survived in the cracks, and Jackson led them. Once, he had commanded a fleet of ships. Now he commanded a handful of fighters and mechanics. The world had changed. The Empire made sure of that. Zone 3 is clear, came a voice in his earpiece. It was Lyra, his second in command. Sharp-tongued, clever, and loyal. She had once been a starship pilot before the war. Now she ran ground ops with quiet precision. "Copy that," Jackson replied. "Get the crates inside. We move out in 20. He lowered his binoculars and stepped off the ledge, climbing down into the heart of the ruined city. His boots echoed softly against cracked stone as he passed broken signs, hollow streets, and silence that felt far too normal. There were no birds here. No wind, just the low thrum of power from the orbiting blockade ring. Inside the underground base, a converted subway tunnel, the team worked fast. Power was limited, so they used small lanterns and battery lights. Everything was quiet efficiency. Jackson checked the manifest, nodding as Lyra walked over. "No sightings?" he asked. "None. Drones skipped this sector again. They must still think we're based in the south." He glanced at the old map on the wall. They'd been lucky lately, but luck never lasted. The Empire had eyes everywhere. They were just waiting for a mistake. Then came the moment that changed everything. "Commander," said a young tech named Reese, calling from the radio station. "You need to hear this." Jackson walked over. Reese pointed to the audio console. A faint, static-filled signal buzzed through the speakers. Old, broken. But there was something underneath. A pulse, then a coded message, slow, mechanical, and repeated every minute. "This isn't from Earth," Reese said. "It's coming from the asteroid belt." Jackson frowned. "A pirate signal." Reese shook his head. "No, sir. This code, it's military. Pre-blockade era. Terran fleet standard." For a moment no one spoke. The Terran fleet had been wiped out during the last stand at Titan. Every ship had been destroyed. Except one. The one that vanished. "Are you saying this could be the Vigilance?" Lyra asked, her voice quiet. Jackson didn't answer right away. He was listening again. The signal was weak, but steady. Someone, or something, had been broadcasting for a long time. The Vigilance had been the most advanced dreadnought ever built by Earth. It was meant to be the flagship of freedom. It disappeared during the final battle. Everyone assumed it was destroyed. But what if it wasn't? "If this is real," Jackson said slowly, "it changes everything." He looked around at his crew. Their eyes were filled with something he hadn't seen in years. Hope. The Empire was powerful. Their blockade was strong. But a dreadnought, especially that dreadnought, could change the balance. If it could be found. If it could be restored. "Pack the equipment," Jackson said. "We're leaving tonight." Lyra blinked. "Leaving Earth?" He nodded. "We're going to find the Vigilance." For the first time in decades, the stars called out to Earth again. The journey off Earth began with silence. No engines roared. No lights flared. Jackson Morrow and his small team slipped into orbit, aboard an old stealth shuttle known as the Ghost Runner. It was a relic of the old war, patched together with scavenged parts, held by hope and rust. But it still flew, and more importantly, it flew unseen. The Ghost Runner rose through Earth's thin upper atmosphere and into the black void, just beneath the Empire's orbital patrol routes. Inside, the crew moved with quiet purpose. Every second outside Earth's shadow was a risk. One detection, one scan, and the Empire's gunships would arrive. There would be no warning, no mercy. Jackson sat in the command seat, staring at the stars through the forward screen. They seemed brighter now, like they remembered him. It had been nearly a decade since he'd been out here, since the fall of the fleet. He remembered stars differently back then, shining above ships with banners, battles, and freedom. Now they watched silently over occupied worlds. "We've passed the patrol zone," said Lyra, reading from the console. "Engaging long-range jump." Beside her, Reese ran signal triangulation. "Asteroid field coordinates locked. Signal is still active. Same frequency." "Then let's find it," Jackson said. The jump to the asteroid belt took less than 2 hours. The shuttle skimmed through open space, then into a dense zone of rock and debris orbiting just beyond Mars. Here, among the scattered remains of old mining operations and forgotten satellites, was where the signal pointed. The crew stared as they approached. The asteroid was massive, miles across, cratered and cracked. A strange metallic glint shimmered from its surface. At first it looked like scrap, like any other wreck. But as the shuttle flew closer, they saw structure, armor, cannons, a massive hull. And then it became clear. The ship wasn't broken, it was buried. The Dreadnought Vigilance had hidden itself inside the asteroid. Or maybe it had crashed here, partially sealed by impact. Either way, it was there. Real, huge, silent. "Dear stars," Reese whispered. "It's actually here." The Vigilance was unlike any other ship ever built by Earth. Over 1,000 meters long, armored with layered hull plating, powered by twin-core reactors, and loaded with weapons that could level a small moon. It was designed to lead the Terran fleet, and die with it, but somehow it had survived. They brought the Ghost Runner in slow and docked at an external port, halfway covered in asteroid dust and rock. Jackson stepped off the shuttle first, his boots thudding against the cold, silent metal of the Dreadnought's hull. Inside, the corridors were dark. Lights flickered faintly from emergency power, barely enough to see. The air was thin, stale but breathable. It smelled of dust, old fuel, and rusting steel. "We're inside," Lyra said through her helmet mic. "Systems in sleep mode." "Can we bring it online?" Jackson asked. "I'll try," said Kira, the youngest member of the team and the best engineer they had. She knelt beside a console and opened a panel. Her fingers moved fast, reconnecting wires, bypassing dead circuits. Within minutes, the ship stirred. Lights flickered along the corridor. A low hum began, power flowing again. Consoles lit up with ancient displays. The ship was waking up. Jackson walked through the halls, remembering the ship from stories his father told him. The Vigilance had once been the pride of the fleet. Now it looked like a sleeping giant, old, wounded, but still alive. The bridge was massive, lined with dusty control panels and reinforced glass that looked out over space. Jackson stood at the center, hand on the command rail. "This ship fought the Empire and survived," he said quietly. "And now it's ours." But Kira's voice broke through his thoughts. "Commander, we have a problem." He turned. "The primary reactor is offline. One of the cores is completely dead. The other is working, but barely. Most of the weapons are disabled. Navigation shot. Engines are functional, but only at low power. It'll take serious work to make this thing fly again." Jackson nodded. "How long?" Kira hesitated. "If we had full resources, weeks, maybe longer." "We don't have weeks," Lyra added. "You know the Empire will track our jump sooner or later." "I know," Jackson said. They stood in silence on the bridge of a broken dreadnought, deep inside a forgotten rock, in the middle of enemy-controlled space. The situation was impossible. And yet, they had the vigilance. Jackson looked out the viewport at the asteroid field. Somewhere out there the Empire hunted them. Somewhere, a fleet was coming. He turned to his crew. Then we fix it. We power it up. We launch it. This ship was made to stand against the Empire. And it will again. For the first time in 50 years, the flagship of Earth was alive. Inside the asteroid, the vigilance groaned like a waking beast. The crew had powered the lights and reopened life support systems, but everything else remained in ruin. Corridors were choked with dust. Wiring hung from the ceilings. Control panels blinked with red warnings. The great ship was alive, but barely. Commander Jackson Morrow stood in the main engine room, watching as Kira and her repair team worked in silence. She had stripped down to her inner suit, covered in grime and sweat, moving fast between cracked circuits and exposed panels. "Coolant levels dropping," she said, without looking up. "I need a full flush if we want the secondary thrusters to stabilize." "Can we fly without them?" Jackson asked. Kira shook her head. "You'd be piloting a flying coffin." Jackson nodded. "Then make it work." That had become his answer for everything these days. The Empire was out there. Time was closing in, and every minute wasted was a minute they didn't have. Back on the bridge, Reese sat hunched over the communication station. He was scanning for signs of the Empire's long-range sensors. So far, no signals. But he knew better than to relax. "They'll notice soon," he told Lyra, who stood at the tactical console. "Our jump wasn't perfect. Could have left a trace." "They always notice," she replied. "The question is, how much time do we have?" Lyra looked over the systems report. Weapons were mostly offline. Shields were running at 10%. Targeting systems were blind. And the main cannon, the one that had once torn through enemy ships like paper, was dead. "We can't hold this ship if we're found," she said flatly. Jackson entered the bridge behind her, wiping sweat from his brow. He had just finished helping move fuel cells to the engine bay. He heard what she said. He didn't argue. "I know," he said. "But we don't need to hold it. We just need to launch it." He walked to the command rail, looked out at the asteroid field through the thick viewport. The stars beyond were still calm, but he felt it, like a storm on the edge of the sky. The Empire would come. They always came. Down in the forward hangar bay, they found what was left of the ship's old fighter squadrons. Most had been stripped for parts or destroyed during the last battle. But 2 old interceptors remained, hidden under tarps and emergency plating. Jackson examined them closely. One was salvageable. The other was a wreck. "Could we use one for recon?" he asked Kira, when she joined him. She shrugged. "If we fly it by hand, no autopilot, and don't get into a fight." Jackson smiled. "So it's got a chance." By the 3rd day the ship had changed. It was still broken, still tired, but it had life again. Lights stayed on. Consoles responded. The engines began their slow startup. One by one, pieces were coming together. And so were the people. The crew worked around the clock. Shifts bled into each other. They slept in the corners of engineering bays and storage rooms. They ate cold ration packs. They argued. They laughed. And slowly they started to believe. For most of them, the war had ended in silence. No victory. No farewell. Only occupation. But now they were back on a warship. Back on their feet. It felt like they had purpose again. Then the warning came. Reese stood up fast from the comm station. "Commander, we've been pinged." A sensor pulse from the outer belt. "Imperial frequency." Lyra turned sharply. "They found us." Jackson didn't flinch. "How far?" "Too far for weapons. But close enough to scan us." Kira entered the bridge, seconds later, hearing the alert through her earpiece. "We're not ready," she said, panic creeping into her voice. "They know we're here," Lyra said. even if they don't know what we've got. Jackson thought for a moment. Then he looked at his crew. Seal all outer ports. Lock down the core. Kira, give me everything you've got. Engine power, shields, even if it fries the system. Reese, scramble the signal. Make them guess. Everyone scattered into action. The hours that followed were a storm of movement. Kira rerouted power from non-essential systems to boost the core. The lights dimmed across the ship, but the engines rumbled louder. Steam hissed through ducts. The ship vibrated with heat. Lyra charged the few remaining defensive systems. They were weak, but they could stall. Reese scrambled frequencies, bouncing signals across old satellites to confuse any scan patterns. If the Empire tried to listen, they'd hear only echoes. Still, the pressure grew. Then the worst happened. Kira burst onto the bridge, face pale. One of the crew, the new tech from Delta Base. I found him in the core room. He was trying to overload it. Jackson's face hardened. A spy. He had an Empire frequency jammer. If I hadn't caught him, the whole ship would have blown. Jackson ordered him locked in a storage cell. The man didn't speak. He didn't need to. They knew what he was. The Empire hadn't just found them. They had already been watching. Jackson looked around at the tired, tense faces of his crew. We don't get second chances, he said. This ship isn't ready, but we don't have time to wait. He turned to Kira. Can it fly? She paused, then nodded. Not fast, not far. But yes, it can fly. Jackson took a breath. Then we fly. We break out of this belt before the Empire arrives. The vigilance rises now, or never. The ship moaned as the engines roared to full power for the first time in 50 years. The lights along the hull flickered on. The main reactor core stabilized. Systems came online, one after another. Jackson looked out at the asteroid walls surrounding them. The galaxy would know. Earth still had a fight left. The vigilance trembled as its engines came to life. Deep in the belly of the ship, metal groaned and cables sparked. For the first time in 50 years, the massive dreadnought moved under its own power. Slowly, it began to shift inside the asteroid that had hidden it for decades. Commander Jackson Morrow stood on the bridge, eyes fixed on the screen, showing the main thruster output. Flames danced gently behind the ship, pushing it forward a few meters at a time. It wasn't much, but it was movement. After days of work, after years of silence, the vigilance was finally waking up. Thrusters holding steady, said Kira, seated at the engineering station. Her face was pale, eyes tired, hands smudged with grease. We're pushing at 12% power. Any more, and the core might go unstable. It's enough, Jackson said. Just keep it going. Lyra, stationed at the tactical console, watched the radar. No signs of pursuit yet, but we've got flickers in the far field. Could be scout drones. Could be worse. Jackson nodded. The Empire was out there, somewhere, watching, waiting. He turned to Reese, who monitored communication scans. Any messages coming in? Jackson asked. Nothing local, Reese said. But we picked up a system-wide ping a few hours ago. It was encrypted. Empire grade. Probably a check-in. Could they be talking to someone on board? Lyra asked. Jackson's jaw tightened. The memory came back fast. The saboteur. The tech they caught trying to overload the core. He's still in the lower cell, Jackson asked. Yes, locked and guarded. Lyra confirmed. He hasn't spoken since we caught him. Jackson didn't like it. One spy meant more eyes. The Empire didn't send just one signal when it could plant a whole chain of traitors. I want a full systems audit, he said. Every access code, every transmission log. If anyone else is working for the Empire, I want them found now. Down in the dim corridors of Deck 7, Reese and 2 security crew ran a sweep. They checked terminals, reset IDs, and scanned for hidden transmitters. Most logs were clean. Some were older than Reese himself. But then he found something strange. A login. Recent. Unauthorized. From a hidden console in the storage bay. He called it in immediately. Jackson and Lyra arrived within minutes. The console was buried behind old crates, covered in dust, but the screen glowed faintly. Kira joined them and plugged in her toolset. "This shouldn't even be active," she said. "This system was supposed to be shut down 50 years ago." She tapped a few keys. Her eyes widened. "There's a secondary beacon, tied to an internal timer. It's set to broadcast our location in 12 hours. Jackson's chest went cold. "Can you stop it?" "I can disarm the beacon, but the trigger's wired deep into the core command system. Someone knew this ship, someone who served on it." Jackson didn't say anything. He was thinking, remembering. His father once told him the Vigilance had a small crew during its final mission. Some were trusted, some were forced on board. In the chaos of war, not everyone was loyal. "Shut it down," he ordered. Kira worked fast. Sparks flew, warnings blinked. But then the console dimmed, and the beacon went quiet. "It's off," she said. But there could be more. Later Jackson visited the brig alone. The prisoner sat in the corner of the small cell, chained and silent. His uniform was stripped, his face blank. Jackson stared at him through the bars. "You were never one of us." The man said nothing. "You signaled them. You tried to kill my crew. Why?" Still silence. Jackson stepped closer. "You think you're loyal to the Empire, but they won't spare you. Once you serve your purpose, they'll wipe you out like the rest." Finally the man looked up. His eyes were calm, cold. "They already won," he said softly. "You're just a ghost, Commander. This ship is dust, Earth is forgotten, and you're chasing a dream that died long ago." Jackson stared at him. "Maybe, but dreams don't stay dead forever." He turned and walked out. Back on the bridge, the crew gathered. The ship was moving clear of the asteroid. The hull scraped against rock as it slowly pushed free. Stars stretched wide around them now. Open space, no longer a prison of stone. Lyra spoke first. "We're out. Free drift begins. Enemy ships still haven't arrived." Kira added. "Reactor core is stable. Main cannon offline, but shields holding at 15%. Reese chimed in. "I ran a secondary scan. No more hidden beacons detected, but I still think someone helped that spy. He didn't get in alone." Jackson nodded. "We stay alert. No more mistakes." That night, if night could be measured in deep space, the ship felt different. The lights flickered less. The engines hummed steady. For the first time the Vigilance moved under its own power, slow but strong. Jackson stood in the observation deck, staring out at the black. He thought about Earth, about his father, who had gone down with the fleet, about what it meant to rise again, after being beaten. This ship had been forgotten, buried, left to rot, but now it had a crew again. It had purpose. He looked at the stars and whispered, "We're not done yet." Far away, across the darkness, the Empire was coming, but the Vigilance would be ready. The Dreadnought Vigilance drifted through space like a sleeping beast, slow and steady, its hull still scarred from decades in hiding. Behind it, the asteroid it once called home shrank into the distance. Ahead, open stars waited, and danger. On the bridge, Commander Jackson Morrow stood at the command rail. He looked calm, but his eyes were sharp. Every sound, every flicker on the screen mattered. They had escaped the asteroid, but it wasn't freedom, it was just the start. Lyra scanned the tactical display. "We've got movement. 3 small ships entering the belt from the far side. Fast, sharp turn patterns. Imperial design." Jackson's jaw tightened. "Scouts," Reese added. "They haven't locked on yet, but they're scanning. If they get close enough, they'll ping our exact position." Kira leaned in from her station. "We can't outrun them, not at this speed. Our engines can't push to full without overheating." Jackson looked at the screen, then back at his crew. "We're not running." A moment of silence followed. The team glanced at each other. Lyra raised an eyebrow. "We're fighting? In this condition?" He nodded. "If we run, they'll chase and call reinforcements. If we fight and win, they don't report anything. No signal, no trace." Kira's voice was quiet but steady. Then we make this ship fight. The next few hours were a blur of preparation. The power core was pushed to its limit. Kira rerouted energy from non-critical systems, lighting, climate control, even internal doors, to strengthen shields and maneuvering thrusters. The temperature inside the ship dropped. Lights dimmed to near darkness, but slowly systems came to life. Targeting computers reconnected. Shield generators warmed up. Cannons 3 out of 12 came online. They weren't at full strength, not even close, but they were no longer helpless. Lyra walked the weapons deck personally, checking each station. Reese double-checked communication jammers to keep their signal hidden. Jackson stood at the helm, watching every movement on the radar. Then it happened. The 3 Imperial scout ships locked on. "They've seen us," Reese said. Jackson didn't flinch. "Prepare to engage." The battle began fast. The enemy ships darted through the asteroid field like hunters. Small, sleek, and fast, they fired light plasma bursts that scraped the Vigilance's weakened shields. Sparks flew across the bridge. Alarms blinked. The ship shook under the impact. But Jackson remained still. "Do not return fire yet," he ordered. "Let them get closer." Lyra glanced at him. "Closer. We'll take hull damage. They think we're dead metal. Let them believe it a little longer." The Vigilance slowed. Its engines dimmed. To the scouts it looked like a half-functioning relic drifting through space. They came closer. Then Jackson gave the order. "Fire." The Dreadnought came alive in an instant. 2 plasma cannons roared from the side turrets. Green-blue light shot across the black. 1 scout ship exploded in a silent flash of flame. The second dodged left, but was clipped by shrapnel. Its tail spun out of control. "Direct hit," Lyra shouted. 1 down, second crippled. The third scout looped up, firing everything it had. Red bolts hammered the Vigilance's front hull. 1 struck near the bridge. Metal cracked. Consoles sparked. A small fire broke out in the corner. "We've got a hull breach on deck 2, Kira said. "I'm sealing it." Jackson didn't move. "Bring the main cannon online." "The main cannon's still charging," Kira warned. "You said we didn't have enough power. Give it what we have. 1 shot. That's all we need." The enemy pilot must have realized something was wrong. The scout turned hard, preparing to retreat. But the Vigilance had already locked on. The ship shook as energy poured into the old heavy weapon. The cannon fired. It wasn't perfect. The beam flickered. The targeting wasn't exact. But it hit. The third ship vanished into dust and flame. The battle was over. The silence afterward was heavy. Sparks flickered. Systems glowed faintly. The Dreadnought floated through smoke and wreckage. But they had won. "We did it," Reese whispered, his voice full of disbelief. Lyra sat back in her chair. 3 Imperial scouts, gone. Kira leaned against her console, exhausted. "We need to shut down the main gun. It almost burned out the core." "Do it," Jackson said. "We've made our point." They spent the next few hours repairing minor damage, patching the hull breach, cooling the engines, restoring lights. The crew moved slower now, worn down but proud. For the first time since the blockade began, the Vigilance had fired its weapons in defense of Earth and won. Jackson stood alone on the observation deck, looking out at the debris field left behind. Those scouts never got the chance to report. For now, the Empire didn't know the Vigilance had returned, but they would, sooner or later. Still, they had time, and they had a ship. Jackson pressed the intercom. "All hands prepare for final approach to Earth orbit. Keep comms tight. Stay alert. We've proven we're still in the fight. Now let's go home." Lights across the ship flickered brighter. The crew stood taller. The Vigilance moved forward, through the belt toward Earth, no longer a relic, but a symbol. The planet Earth spun slowly below, half covered in clouds and golden sunlight, half dark in shadow. From the bridge of the Vigilance, it looked peaceful, silent, distant, unchanged. But Commander Jackson Morrow knew the truth. That peace was only an illusion. The blockade still circled the planet like a chain. Imperial patrols cruised low orbit, weapons charged. Ground cities were still struggling, starving, waiting, hoping. And now, hope was coming back. The Vigilance moved into position behind the curve of the moon, silent, hidden, still running on patched systems and borrowed time. The crew had spent the last 2 days cooling the engines, sealing hull fractures, and repairing the damage from the asteroid belt battle. The ship wasn't whole, it wasn't fast, but it was ready. All systems holding, Kira said from engineering. Shields at 30%, engines stable, cannons charged. 1 shot from the main gun is possible. Good, Jackson replied. We won't get another. Lyra stood at the tactical display, eyeing the orbital defense lines. There are 6 enemy ships in range. Patrol class, fast, well-armed, but nothing big. Jackson nodded. They won't expect us. Let's use that. The plan was simple. Strike hard. Send a message. Break the silence Earth had been trapped in for 50 years. Jackson stepped to the center of the bridge. Patch me into global comms, he said. Reese worked quickly, tapping into old Earth satellites, slipping past Empire interference. Static buzzed. Screens blinked. Then connection. You're live, Reese said. Jackson took a breath and spoke. This is Commander Jackson Morrow of the Dreadnought Vigilance. To all resistance fighters, to every city, colony and outpost, Earth is not defeated. The blockade is breaking. The Empire is not invincible, and we are no longer silent. His voice echoed through broken radios, underground bunkers and homes lit by fading power cells. Across Earth, people stopped and listened. Farmers in dusty fields, engineers in hidden labs, children who had never seen the stars. They heard something they hadn't heard in years. A Terran voice from space. Then the ship moved. Engines fired. The Vigilance surged into open orbit, breaking through the shadow of the moon. The Empire responded instantly. Alarms sounded across the blockade grid. Patrol ships turned, weapons locked. They're coming, Lyra said. Fast. Let them, Jackson said. The first enemy ship fired a barrage of plasma bolts. Shields on the Vigilance flared, then dropped slightly. Another ship looped in from the side, aiming for the engine core. Hold fire, Jackson ordered. Wait, the enemy came closer, too close. The Vigilance looked old, slow. The Empire didn't see it for what it was. Now, the Dreadnought side turrets came to life. Green-blue bursts tore through space. One Imperial fighter exploded instantly. The second took heavy damage, spinning away. The others scattered. Then the main cannon charged, targeting the lead cruiser, Kira said. Weapon at full power. Fire, Jackson said. The bridge shook as the cannon fired. A beam of energy lanced across the sky, piercing the largest enemy ship. It broke apart in seconds. Metal, fire, silence. The rest of the Empire fleet pulled back, unsure. The Dreadnought had done what no Earth ship had done in 50 years. It had fought back, and won. The Vigilance didn't chase. It didn't need to. Instead, it slowed. Reese activated the message beacon again. A symbol appeared on every screen. An old Earth emblem. A star wrapped in wings. The sign of the Terran fleet. We'll fall back to orbit, Jackson said. Let the world see us. Let the people know. In the hours that followed, Earth changed. From the underground cities in Africa to the resistance bunkers in South America, people rose up. Fighters armed themselves. Engineers dusted off hidden machines. Messages passed through long-dead channels. A movement began, not just of weapons, but of will. The Empire responded with fear. More ships arrived. But they didn't attack. Not yet. Not after what they saw the Vigilance do. That night, the Dreadnought floated above Earth in silence. Its lights glowed. Its cannons rested. Inside, the crew sat together in the common bay, eating, drinking, breathing for the first time without panic. Jackson stood alone on the bridge, watching the blue curve of Earth. We did it, Lyra said, behind him, walking in slowly. We did something, Jackson replied. The war isn't over. No, she agreed. But it started again, and this time we're ready. He nodded. The ship rumbled softly beneath their feet. A slow, steady hum, not broken anymore, not lost. A symbol had returned. A planet had awakened. And somewhere, far across the stars, the Empire would feel it.